Dobar dan. Hvala vam što ste došli na današnju konferenciju za medije. Ovom dvodnevnom radnom posetom završena je druga faza međustranačkog dijaloga uz posredstvo europarlamentaraca. Sa nama su danas gospođa Tanja Fajon, posrednica u međustranačkom dijalogu i šefica delegacije u Parlamentarnom odboru za stabilizaciju i pridruživanje Evropske unije i Srbije. Gospodin Vladimir Bilcik, posrednik u dijalogu i stalni izvestilac Evropskog parlamenta za Srbiju. Gospodin Eduard Kukan i gospodin Knut Fleckenstein, posrednici u dijalogu i bivši poslanici Evropskog parlamenta. Ja bih sada zamolila gospodina Bilčika da se obrati prvi. Hvala vam.
Dobar dan, hvala. Thank you very much. Very good morning, and I'm very pleased to see so many of you here. Of course, we are happy to listen to your questions and have a very open discussion about this trip. This trip is coming to a close, the trip of the 4 co-facilitators in the inter-party dialogue. But our mission is not over. Our mission is something which we are ready to continue in the coming weeks, but especially after the elections. And we are pleased to report that the various partners we've spoken to have already asked us and indicated they are ready to cooperate with the European Parliament, because there are a number of outstanding issues that we can work on when it comes to improving the quality of political competition, the quality of public institutions, and the quality of democracy in Serbia. I would like to give you briefly a few remarks on what has been happening in the past couple of days. We had a number of constructive meetings during this mission with the members of the parliament, the government, and the opposition. This mission and the purpose of this mission was to look at the implementation of an agreement which we reached in the fall on the 16 measures which the government and the parliament have committed to implementing when it comes to improving conditions for elections in Serbia this year. I would like to acknowledge that the meetings have been constructive, have been matter of fact, and especially would like to underline good cooperation we've had with the Skupština and the Speaker Ivica Dačić, who has been a very good partner and actually an important and crucial co-facilitator on the Serbian side. The role of the Parliament is crucial when it comes to democracy, when it comes to fostering dialogue among political opponents. We may disagree, but we should all agree that the Parliament and the institutions of democracy are the main arena for having political competition. In that sense, we are pleased to hear that all political parties will run in the elections which are foreseen for April. And we've always said that boycott is not the way to go, and we are pleased that indeed this is the fact. And I think the very fact that these parties are running is already a good signal, good step forward for the democracy and democratic competition in Serbia. We would like to acknowledge that a wide range of political actors has been engaged in this dialogue, in this second phase of the dialogue, which physically began in July last year and continued with meetings in September and in November when Eduard Kukan and Knut Fleckenstein were in Belgrade, and of course does continue. We do regret at the same time that some political parties and actors have decided not to participate in the implementation of the measures which we agreed. After listening to all the sides in the past couple of days, it is important to acknowledge that progress has been made and there are some positive changes ahead of elections. But what is absolutely key is the implementation of the measures agreed, implementations of the laws which are foreseen to be passed in Skupština, and we regret that there already is a delay in the implementation of the 16 measures. So this is one of our main messages. It is extremely important to focus that all commitments are fully and consequently implemented. Among the key things and key aspects, I would like to highlight a couple of things. One is the position and the work of the temporary supervisory body. You may remember this is an institution which was established on the basis of the agreement reached in September last year. We are pleased we were able to meet the temporary supervisory body with all 12 members present. It's very clear that this body is working. And it's important that this body gets the prominence and the public attention it deserves. It is a body which is charged with overseeing and reporting on the overall conditions of electoral competition, particularly when it comes to public access of political actors in the media, but also overseeing other measures connected to level playing field in the electoral campaign. Secondly, we acknowledge changes in the Republican Electoral Commission in RIC. It is important that everyone and the public institutions especially gets ready for elections. In April. There are going to be a number of changes. These elections are going to be not a single election, unlike the referendum. In some polling stations, people are going to vote in parliamentary, presidential, and local elections. And it's very important that everybody, including the public, understands what is at stake, what the rules are, and that the electoral commissions, not just centrally, but especially at the local level, are ready to deal with the electoral process. So we would encourage and urge the authorities and the government to really train and prepare everyone who will be overseeing the process. And of course, all political parties should mobilize and get ready to have their people, their observers, and their staff in the polling stations. There are some robust changes which are taking place in the electoral framework as a result of our work, but also taking into account OSCE audit recommendations. And it is important that they are followed through thoroughly and consequently in coming weeks in Skupština, but then also in government. When it comes to the media scene, we realize that the media scene has been and continues to be polarized in Serbia. It is important to note that there are some improvements in the media space when it comes to the public broadcaster, RTS, RTV, and the interlocutors we have spoken to do recognize that some space for opposition views has been made, and that is important. I think what is essential is that the journalists have the space to work freely and independently. It is important that the freedom and independence of the media space is fully protected. This has always been a priority for the European institutions and the European Parliament, and it is going to be even more important as the campaign begins in the run-up to elections. The citizens must have trust in the electoral process, and therefore we do reiterate our call on the competent authorities to ensure a fair and free electoral process. We also call on the parties running for elections to focus on agenda, on party programs, on what's at stake here for the future of Serbia. These are going to be very closely watched elections. This is a super election year for Serbia, and the European Union institutions will be watching the process very closely. The European Parliament is ready to observe these elections on the ground as well, and I, as the standing rapporteur, will be drafting my first draft of the report on Serbia following the elections in April. I would like to, before I pass the floor to Tanja Fajon, to reiterate that we are ready to continue our cooperation with all interlocutors, with all political actors and public institutions in Serbia in coming days and weeks, and we are ready to come back when necessary and to continue our engagement in the inter-party dialogue beyond the elections. Tanja.
Hvala Vladimir, dobar dan svima. U veliko mi je zadovoljstvo da smo opet u Beogradu, u Srbiji. Završili smo drugu fazu međustranačkog dijaloga. Zadovoljna sam ishodom. Politika je stvar kompromisa, teških kompromisa. Nije uvek bilo lako, ali učinili smo što je bilo moguće. Imali smo dobru saradnju sa većinom političkih aktera. Hvala svima za konstruktivan dijalog. A sada i na Srbiji da su izbori uspjeh. Postali smo na neki način garant pluralizma i dijaloga u Srbiji. I to je pravi put Srbije ka Europskoj uniji. Želim da vidim slobodne, fer i poštene izbore. Cela europska i međunarodna zajednica će pratiti ove izbore. To je test, još jedan test zrelosti Srbije. Test za budućnost, za bolji život građana u Srbiji, test za demokratiju i slobodu medija. I na kraju samo da dam još jednu poruku u svoje lično ime. Ovo je bila moja posljedna misija u svojstvu EU parlamentarke u Srbiji. Razlog su izbori u Sloveniji, kraj aprila ove godine, kojima ću se sada puno i ja posvetiti. Ali nadam se da sam u tih nekoliko godina koje smo radili zajedno uspjela pridoniti boljem okruženju što se tiče izbora i medija u Srbiji. Srbija ima u meni i uvijek će imati u meni iskrenog prijatelja koji se uvijek na konstruktivno kritički način i sa velikom razumevanjem zalaže za put Srbije ka Europskoj uniji. Hvala naravno svima i sretno na izborima.
Zahvaljujem se gospođi Fajon i otvaram mogućnost pitanja. Da li imamo pitanje? Izvolite, samo mikrofon.
Dobar dan, Vanja Đurić, N1. Videli smo sada dok su trajali razgovori ova 2 dana u Beogradu da su predstavnici vlasti izjavljivali da je učinjen veliki napredak, predstavnici opozicije da baš i nije. Kakav je vaš utisak? Da li ste negde između ili kom stavu ste skloni? Hvala. I ako možemo da čujemo šta je vaš utisak, ako može da nam se napravi taksativno šta vam deluje da je ispunjeno i šta je urađeno do sada. Hvala.
I think we are all aware as politicians that although the official campaign and the elections have not been officially called, the campaign is already taking place. So it's very much that our trip here is already coming at a time when the political forces are campaigning, and of course everyone will stress their own priorities and their own view of the situation. Our view is just the way we've described it. Yes, politics is about compromise, politics is about engagement. What we have been pleased about is that we have engaged with everyone. What we found extremely important and useful was an agreement on the 16 measures, which we do believe and are convinced can improve the conditions for political competition and can give Serbia a chance for freer and fairer elections than last time around. And it is extremely important that this opportunity is fully taken up by everyone, by those who are responsible for implementing the measures, so the government in the first instance, but also the parliament, which still has to pass a number of laws, but also the media to report really objectively, intensely on what is ahead for Serbia. This should be an exercise in overall public responsibility. Democracy is always about a choice, but that choice has to be taken by the voters. And I think at the center of this should be the voters. The 6 million plus people who are going to be able to vote in these elections. They should be at the forefront of the interest of everyone, and this is what we've kept in our mind with our mission. So, as we said, the implementation of the measures must be key. We are not pleased that there has been a delay in the implementation, but we've heard strong assurances that the implementation will go forward. And I would hope that the government delivers on this. We will watch it very closely. At the same time, I would also urge everyone, and we've said this repeatedly, that these elections must be about substance. Yes, the rules of the game are important, but I do hope that the campaign will allow for everyone to enter a discussion on substance. What is there for Serbia to do after these elections? And based on the campaign, based on the elections, Serbia has a chance to move forward on the European path, to move forward on the path of modernizing the country's democratic institution. And I hope that everyone will be engaged in this. It's very clear to us that there is a chance to have a different skupština than the one which Serbia has at the moment, also thanks to the fact that there is not going to be boycott here. And I hope that the opposition takes up full opportunity of being engaged in the institutions which are to oversee the elections, at the polling stations, within the Republican Electoral Commission, but also when it comes to communicating with voters in terms of not only what is at stake, but what they should be doing on the election day. So I think everybody has a responsibility here, and I'm not going to comment in detail what the politicians are saying in their statements, because we are not part of this campaign. We in the European Parliament will never decide Serbia's elections, or will never be able to change fundamentally the democratic institutions here. What we do provide is space for dialogue, and what we do provide is also space for feedback. That's why we are here.
Samo kratko. Ovaj put nema bojkota nijedne političke partije i bili smo facilitatori, a naravno loptica je na strani svih političkih aktera u Srbiji.
Da li ima još pitanja? Izvolite. Jelena Kikić, pregled dana Newsmax Adria. Dobar dan. Ako možemo samo da se osvrnemo malo na medijsku sliku, ne znam da li ste imali prilike tokom samo ovog meseca da pogledate recimo film koji je emitovan na 2 nacionalna kanala u kom se opozicioni lideri i pojedini novinari targetiraju kao špijuni, strani plaćenici, ljudi koji žele zlo ovoj zemlji. Da je prethodnih dana samo na pomen imena mogućih kandidata opozicije za gradonačelnika i predsjednika, da su tabloidi krenuli da ih takođe targetiraju i blate. Ako govorimo o fair i slobodnim izborima, odnosno uslovima, sa takvom medijskom slikom u kom smeru može to sve da ide i kako uopšte komentarišete pojavu takvih stvari?
Good afternoon. I would first say something to the question before and then maybe also to yours. Are we satisfied or not is not the real question. The question is, what was our mission? Our mission was not to tell people in government or in opposition how to deal with the realities, how to change the country. Our mission was to find out, are there some lines where everyone can agree on to go a step forward? And Mr. Bilcik already mentioned these 16 points, and even yesterday, I think it is a good sign that the Deputy Secretary General of REC will be a member of an opposition party or coming from an opposition party. So something has been done, and you know all this, I don't repeat that. The conclusion, whether this is enough or not, whether this is a success or not, this conclusion has to be done by the Serbian people themselves, or the parties. And I respect that there are some who say that was so poor, we don't want to follow that. I think it's a pity, but it's their conclusion. So we were not here to save some ground for the president or the majority. We were not here to be the lawyers of the opposition. We were here to see and to help a little bit that in a dialogue some step forward is possible. And what the media scene is, or let me say something about the media scene. I think for me the most important thing now is that you as journalists, the medias, the TVs, the newspapers, that they are really open for all interlocutors, for all stakeholders in this process, for all parties, for opposition as well as for the government or the majority side. And that the other way around, politicians don't start to choose their media. I only speak with them, the other speaks only with this one. So that the citizens of Serbia can get really a broad picture of ideas, hopefully, programs and persons they can choose on. And you will not expect something different than that we appeal that that should be in a fair manner and that we all should try to avoid this kind of smear media work we sometimes see, not only on one side.
Zahvaljujem se, da li...
Thank you. Just shortly to also answer the question by the distinguished journalists asking about how satisfied we are with the result of this process. Well, I would answer you that the way you ask the question, it's already positive or constructive, because nobody says that there is no progress. You are asking about how much we are satisfied. I think that nobody can deny that there is some progress compared to the situation when we started this dialogue. And I think that is the most important result and issue and piece of news. Of course, there will be always different interpretation of the result by the government and by the opposition. So we are satisfied in the way that our process was completed by achieving some progress which will change the situation, and I believe which we can say now which will allow the opposition parties to participate in the elections. That's what we wanted to achieve. It seems what we hear from everybody that they are not going to boycott the election, and that's already big progress. Thank you.
If I may comment just briefly on the question of and I will start commenting on the question itself, because you raised the question about an opposition journalist. Now, I hope and I wish that step by step Serbia can work towards a media environment where we talk about professional, quality, free, and independent journalists. This is the way we talk about journalists across Europe, and this is something we need to safeguard across Europe. There are governmental and opposition politicians, but there are only journalists who are ideally free, responsible, independent, and really focused on the quality, on the facts. And I think this is the key. Their work has to be preserved at all times, and especially before elections. And this is something which we watch very closely in the European Union. We have in the pipeline in coming months a proposal for European legislation, the so-called Media Freedom Act, which is going to be proposed by the European Commission for the European Union member states and discussed already during the current French presidency of the European Union. I think this is an important signal also to all candidate countries, including Serbia, that the freedom and independence of media and your work as journalists, I know you ask tough questions and difficult questions, but it is up to us politicians to answer those. That's part of the job. You should be able to do that in all conditions. So I just want to underline this, that this is an important part of what we are going to be observing in coming weeks and months.
Da li ima još pitanja? Ne vidim da li ima. Iscrpili smo sva pitanja. U tom slučaju zahvaljujem se svima što ste bili danas i ovim je konferencija za novinare završena. Hvala vam.
Hvala.